Hello everyone and welcome to the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. Let's get straight down to it, shall we? So yesterday marked the year anniversary of Joshua Ruiz One of the biggest shocks, biggest upsets in boxing history, boxing heavyweight history and boxing history. I just want to recall the events and just kind of see where we're at a year on, shall we? So, June 1st, Madison Square Garden, New York, Joshua's big US debut. It was there, wasn't it, for him to become a superstar in the States. He was already a big name across the global world, but this was his big chance to really shine in the US market. And don't forget, at the time, we were touting the big Wilder-Joshua fight, which obviously at the time was the must-see. Fury hadn't beaten Wilder at this point, and we were talking ridiculous money, wasn't we? We was talking 8 figures each, Wilder and Joshua. So it was all to play for. Obviously, there had been pre-fight build-up, confusion, chaos. Gerald Miller, the original opponent, obviously got sidelined because of drug offences, performance-enhancing drugs. So it left the door open for Andy Ruiz, who'd just come off fighting a journeyman but was in fighting shape to come and take the mantle. Now, I believe Ruiz was something like 34, 32, 33 and 1. So he'd fought a lot of amateur experience, fantastic amateur record. And only lost to Joseph Parker in a world title challenge back in 2015. Which could have gone either way. But it was in New Zealand, in Joseph Parker's home country, so he got the nod. So he was dangerous, but we saw how comfortably Joshua dealt with Parker, and we all made the mistake, including me, thinking if he's dealt with Parker, he's going to deal with Ruiz because they're on the same kind of level. Of course, what we didn't realise is style makes fights. We were also very guilty, including me, of looking at Ruiz's body shape. This short, big, fat, out-of-shape guy. But of course, if you look at Tyson Fury, he's hardly body gorgeous. What we didn't underestimate is the fact that Ruiz has fantastic cardio. He carries the weight well. When he was, like he was in the first fight, 18.5 stone. And he's got ridiculous hand speed and fantastic footwork for a guy of that heavy weight. So we just didn't see any of this. Obviously, we knew he had good hand speed, but there was no way he was going to stand the power of Joshua. No way was he going to deal with the size, the reach, all of that. And so, of course, as the fight progressed, what we couldn't see is Ruiz getting up like he did. It was all going to plan, wasn't it? Joshua filling Ruiz out in the first 2 rounds, knocking Ruiz down in the third. Obviously, everyone, including me, thought that was it. But let's backtrack a little bit. There's big talks about Joshua getting knocked out in sparring before that fight. I believe that happened because as he walked into the ring, a lot of people are saying the body language was all wrong. He was kind of leaning on the ropes, looking down at the ground. This was before the fight. He didn't exude the big confidence, the swagger that he had, say, in the Klitschko fight, walking to Wembley, where his chin was up, shoulders back. He kind of looked nervous, didn't he, like he wanted to get over and done with. I fully believe, now Joshua, to his credit, hasn't confirmed because he didn't want to look like it was an excuse. He did get knocked out in sparring. And that ultimately is going to play a massive psychological effect. Same thing with Tyson. He won a minute, but he got floored prior to the Douglas fight. And you could see he didn't have quite the same pre-fight, walking to the ring, as he normally did in his previous fight. So the camp wasn't ideal. He only had 2 weeks to train for Ruiz. He didn't know a lot about him, underestimated him. All these factors, first time fighting in the States. Obviously, a big, strong Mexican crowd was out for Ruiz. Ruiz, nothing to lose, everything to gain. In good fighting shape. He'd only fought 6 weeks, 7 weeks prior. So he was fresh, he was, relaxed. And Joshua, again in the weigh-in, was handing Ruiz the belts, joking around, very pally. And, Andy Ruiz seemed like a very minimal threat, didn't he? He seemed jovial, a nice guy. It's almost like he was just there to take a payday. But, of course, in his mind, he wasn't at all. So, all these factors come into play. And, of course, Joshua goes in for the kill when he floors Ruiz in the third. And Ruiz, to his credit, gets up because he's a tough cookie. He's got a big chin. He can take a punch. He's a big guy. Phenomenal hand speed. Joshua gets caught in the pocket, which is deadly against a fit, sharp Ruiz. And the hand speed of Ruiz was just overwhelming. Too quick, too accurate for Joshua. And before you know it, 10 seconds later, Joshua's on the floor, badly hit by the temple. Tyson obviously commented on this in the documentary, in the programme, just before the rematch later in the fall. And he said what did for Joshua was getting hit high in the temple, completely scrambled his equilibrium, and he just couldn't recover from that fight. Joshua showed heart for me. He got up. People say he quit. He didn't. He kept getting up, but he just couldn't adapt. He lost all confidence. His legs had gone by this point. His balance had gone. He was just trying to survive. Personally, I think Rob McCracken, I still hold this, should have taken more leadership. He should have just told Joshua to get out the standing fire. Don't engage. A bit like he did against Klitschko. Just use your reach. Stay out of the pocket until your legs come back. Easier said than done, I know, but he didn't need to engage. And as soon as he did, when in the rounds 5, 6 and 7, he got buzzed again and floored. So he just needed to kind of just pepper and jab Ruiz from a distance, and hopefully maybe round 10, round 11, get his legs back, his senses back, and then look to be a little bit more aggressive. Maybe when Ruiz is a little bit more tired. But, tactically he just needed to survive. He didn't need to try and go in a firefight. And, of course, when he did, in 6 and in 7, it was all she wrote, and it was over. So a massive shock, but you can see the factors. You can see the factors why Tyson lost to Douglas. You can see why Lennox Lewis lost to Rahman. And you can see why Joshua, underprepared, overconfident, lost to Andy Ruiz. I think it's a bigger shock than Lewis Rahman, because Lewis at that point had already been knocked out. Rahman, unlike Ruiz, was a big, strong heavyweight in terms of physique. It looked the part, so people kind of knew he was a live threat. People weren't taking Ruiz seriously at all. They just, they were calling him Homer Simpson. He looked like a fat slob. So in that regard, it was more of a shock. Joshua was almost invincible in many people's eyes. He's undefeated, unified champion, whereas at the time Lewis, like I said, already been knocked out, hadn't had the global exposure. People forget this. It only really come to prominence after Tyson, that he really started to get the respect that he was the main man. Josh was a bigger star than Lewis was. There's no question. A lot to do with the fantastic marketing of Eddie Hearn and DAZN and Sky Sports and social media. But he was a global superstar, Joshua. When Lewis got knocked out by Rahman, I wouldn't put him on that level. Of course, he was famous, he was respected, and it was a massive shock. But I don't think he really got that world acclaim until after Tyson. Even after the Holyfield fights, because of, 21 years ago, the lack of social media, the lack of promotion, and the Sky Sports machine that now funds and promotes Joshua. So it was a massive shock, probably the biggest shot in heavyweight boxing since Tyson Douglas. And everyone woke up with, oh my goodness, what's happened? But credit to Joshua, a year on, he fought smart, tactically, didn't engage at all, completely changed his body shape and his tactics in the rematch. Obviously, we know Ruiz come in underprepared, undermotivated. He'd got the payday, he'd been partying, celebrating, much like Duran did against Leonard in the rematch. History always repeats itself. He was partying, out of shape. I think he ballooned to 20.5 stone. That's too heavy. His footwork was too slow. He couldn't get off. 18.5 stone would have been all kinds of a nightmare again for Joshua, because style makes fights. 20.5 stone, he was too slow. Joshua could get out of the way of punches. And it was a great tactical display. He used his reach, he just jabbed and outboxed like a Vladimir Klitschko or Tyson Fury would have done to Ruiz. So credit. The big thing now is where they go from here. Well, we know where Joshua's going. He's got his mandatory against Pulev, which I believe he'll knock out Pulev within 6 rounds. And then he's going to go for a massive mega fight against Tyson Fury, which I believe he'll lose, but he'll make a huge payday. And then he'll probably try and rebuild after the Fury fight. At that stage, he's probably going to be 32, 33. He'll probably have a few more big money fights and retire, I reckon, by about 35. As for Ruiz, this is the interesting one. How much hunger has he got? You follow him on Instagram, he's saying, I've got the eye of the tiger back. I'm training with Canelo's team now. I've got no more distractions. But, I'm sorry we've heard all this before the rematch. Words only get you so far. We need to see actions. We need to see him rebuild at first. Fighting maybe a ranked 9, 10, or even an outside top 10 fighter to show, his new improved physique, his mentality and his skills. I like a fight against any of the kind of current Europeans right now. Even if it's the European champion or European level, that's fine. A Chisora would be a good test. A step down from the world level. That's what we want to see. And then build his way back up. A couple more fights. The Parker rematch after that would be good. And then earn himself into a world title shot. There's no question. Fully fit, fully motivated, Ruiz could beat, I believe, everyone except Tyson Fury. I think Tyson Fury's too good, too slick, too skillful, and Ruiz wouldn't be able to get near him. Everyone else, I think Ruiz closes the gap on. He engages in them. I don't think they've got the slick boxing skills to avoid him for 12 rounds, and I think he does them serious damage. He's got a tough chin, great cardio, great hand speed, and good footwork. He's a nightmare. He gets inside his height. He gets great leverage on punches, hooks, uppercuts, but he can jab, but that's obviously not his strength. But he's a nightmare for all these fighters except Tyson Fury. So there's no question he can become world champion again if the belts splinter and Fury doesn't hold all of them. And again, he's still fairly young. He's 31, so he's got time on his side. But it's how much he wants it. And to be honest with you, it's 50-50. I've seen him on Instagram, but then I've seen him in the ring. So he can go two ways. That could be his shining light, and we won't ever see Ruiz be competitive at world level again. Or he's going to show us in the next two fights how much he wants it, how hungry he is. And if he does follow that path, I expect, not in 2021, but 2022, I expect him to be in the world title hunt. And it's all to play for. So, interesting times ahead. That was the fight that was one of the biggest upsets, and I'm still recovering from it here on. I want to know what you guys think. How do you rate that in the echoes of boxing history? Was it one of the biggest boxing upsets, or did you actually call it? Did you see that happening? I certainly didn't, but I certainly won't underestimate or write off a live underdog ever again. All right, guys, I'm out. I'll see you soon.